As a dog owner, you're going to have to learn how to clean a wound on a dog sooner or later. It's just in the nature of dogs to be inquisitive and exuberant. So, by nature, they're constantly exploring their environment, which often ends up in injuries. Dog injuries usually run the entire gamut. Sometimes, they are really minor and nothing to worry about. Other times, they are life-threatening and need the urgent attention of a vet. Sometimes, it can be difficult to draw the dividing line between a wound you can manage at home and one that needs the intervention of the vet, but we will give you some pointers. Now, before we go into that, you want to keep in mind that wounds are painful. As it is with humans, so it is with dogs. Your dog might never have bitten you or snapped at you before, but even a seemingly tender injury can turn your sweet pet into a monster. So, when handling your injured pet, you might want to enlist the help of another person so they can help to restrain him while you examine the injuries. How to clean a wound on a dog. 1. Using a saline solution. Your first line of defense should be a saline solution. You can either use those you find in first aid boxes, or you can also use your contact lens cleaning solution. Saline solutions have a mild antibacterial property. Also, saline, if made correctly, is similar to body tissues in makeup. It is quite gentle on the healing cells as well. Now, here's the thing about using a saline solution: you want to flood the wound with the solution. So, you're going to be washing by squirting the saline solution, preferably from a syringe, onto the affected part of the body. Doing this will flush all contaminants and debris from the site of the injury. If you don't have a saline solution at home, here's how to make one for your pet. First, you boil some water. When that's done, pour out a cup of the water and add half a teaspoon of salt into the water. Stir the salt into the water to dissolve it and then leave the solution to cool. Please note that for each time you need a saline solution, you should make a fresh one to prevent contamination. 2. Using disinfectant solutions. If your pet first aid kit contains a pet disinfectant, great. Just keep in mind that not every disinfectant that you use in your house is safe for use on an animal. For instance, if a disinfectant contains phenols, it should not be used on an animal, as some find Pine Sol and Lysol very toxic. Examples of such disinfectants are Dettol and Lysol. So, ensure that the disinfectant you're using does not contain phenol. You can tell from the packaging, or simply dissolve it in water. If the disinfectant turns cloudy when diluted in water, then it's phenolic. Safer options when considering disinfectants include povidone iodine and chlorhexidine. Now, make sure you dilute the disinfectant if it is not already diluted. You must dilute the disinfectant according to the strength stated on the label. When disinfectants are concentrated, they kill bugs, damage living tissue, and delay healing. So, it is important to get dilution right. 3. Using hydrogen peroxide. Right now, this is still a bone of contention in the world of veterinary medicine, and we will get to why later. However, some experts are convinced that if you get the dilution right, you should be able to use hydrogen peroxide to clean a wound on a dog. They suggest that you dilute 3% hydrogen peroxide in the ration 1 to 3 of hydrogen peroxide to water. When diluted to this degree, some experts agree that it is now safe to use on minor dog wounds. How to clean an open wound on a dog. Sometimes, a wound needs to remain open in order to heal nicely. For instance, for abscesses, the wound needs to stay open so that it drains properly, and chances of a reinfection are eliminated. For most cases, wounds are closed and sutured to speed up healing. However, if the wound is deeply contaminated or infected, the wound will be left open for the purpose of drainage. Here's how to treat an open wound. 1. Clean the wound with a saline solution to remove any sticky debris or crustiness. Make sure the edges are always clean, as that reduces the chances for a reinfection. It also gives room for new and healthy tissues to form. 2. Give your dog all his medications as prescribed by the vet. Even if your dog begins to heal, please do not discontinue the antibiotics. 3. Do not let your dog lick or chew on his wound. You can prevent this by getting your dog an Elizabethan collar. 4. You must keep the skin from healing too quickly, especially if it's an abscess that has just been lanced and drained surgically that you're dealing with. Wounds that close too quickly can risk a reoccurrence. What can be used to clean an open wound? You can use warm tap water to clean most open wounds. You could also use a warm saline solution, as we described earlier. Other cleansing solutions you can use to clean an open wound include dilute chlorhexidine, iodine solution, or surgical soap can be used to clean dirt and debris from the face of the wound. Please be careful not to use rubbing alcohol, soaps, shampoos, tea tree oil, or hydrogen peroxide to clean an open wound unless your vet expressly says so. Some of them are toxic to dogs if taken internally. Others might delay the healing process. In some cases, your vet might prescribe an antibiotic cream to apply over the wound. Other times, your vet might prescribe antibiotics for your dog to swallow. Now, dogs tend to lick on their wounds, and inadvertently swallow the topical medications applied. For this reason, it's not advisable to use human antiseptics on animals. You can also use sugar to treat an open wound. How to keep the wound from closing untimely. To keep the wound from closing too early, you should massage the skin surrounding the wound gently to promote a drainage. While doing this, you might notice that the wound releases some discharge or bleeds a little. Observe the discharge to see if it's infected. If it's infected, it will be thick and colored. If it's not, it will be thin and clear. Whatever the type, allow it to drain away. However, if for a couple of consecutive days, the discharge remains yellow, green, or bloody, then consult your vet. How to clean a wound on a dog's face. Cleaning an injury around your dog's face and nose can be quite stressful. Nevertheless, it's a skill every dog owner should have, as it could come in handy someday. Dogs that have hurt themselves, especially when the injury is around the face, can get really nervous and touchy as they are in a lot of pain. So, you must treat your dog with care and caution. There are two methods to doing this. 1. The bandage method. First, apply some pressure if the wound is still bleeding. You can do this using either a soft towel or a piece of gauze to apply some pressure on the wound to stop the flow of blood. If your dog is wiggling around, this might take more time. Getting a second hand to restrain your dog while you apply the pressure will be a great idea. After you've been able to stop the bleeding, rinse off the face of the wound using warm water. Water is great because it does not irritate the wound and helps to flush out debris and other bits that might have gotten onto the surface of the wound. Next, remove the fur around the site of the wound either using a pair of scissors or electric clippers. This will be especially important if your dog has long hair. Doing this keeps the area clean and will prevent excess hair from irritating the wound when you eventually apply the bandage. Ensure that you remove all the clipped furs, so it doesn't remain on the wound. Then disinfect the wound using a saline solution, dilute chlorhexidine, and betadine. Do not use hydrogen peroxide as this will only aggravate the wound further. Now, it's time to apply the bandage. You're better off using a square bandage, and to keep your dog from pawing at it, get him an Elizabethan collar, else you'd have to keep your eye on him all day so that if he takes out the bandage, you can replace it. 2. Clean and air. First, remove the hair around the site of the injury with the use of clippers or scissors. If it's a bleeding wound, then take care of the bleeding the way we have shown you. However, this method is best for wounds that are not actively bleeding. You must take your time clipping the fur so that the hair does not enter the wound and cause further irritation. Next, wash the wound using warm water to remove all the hair from the clipping. Do not use hot or cold water as it could make your dog uncomfortable. Stick with warm water. Make sure you take out dirt, debris, and grime that might have accumulated on the wound. Apply an antiseptic to the wound that's safe for dogs to use. Make sure you're gentle with the antiseptic and never put it directly onto the wound. Use a cotton ball or a small cloth to apply the antiseptic onto the wound. Do not use Q-tips, they're pokey, and you might accidentally stab the wound with them, which will only make matters worse. Next, apply some antibacterial ointment on the wound. Since you're not using a bandage, this will ensure that the wound remains clean and free from harmful microorganisms. Now, you want to make sure you don't apply too much. Also, make sure that your dog doesn't lick it off the wound. Clean the site of the wound with antiseptic twice to thrice daily till you can get your dog in to see the vet. Make sure you also monitor your dog closely to see if the wound is getting further irritated or if he seems to be getting more stressed. Why you shouldn't use hydrogen peroxide to clean a wound on a dog. When people see hydrogen peroxide bubbling on wounds, they assume it's a good sign, believing the hydrogen peroxide is dealing with the harmful bacteria present. However, while that is true, something else is also true. Your dog's body cells, fibroblasts, which are supposed to help heal the wound, are also being destroyed. So, while hydrogen peroxide might indeed help to disinfect the wound, it's also delaying the healing process as well. This is why hydrogen peroxide is not recommended for the cleaning of wounds in dogs. When to use hydrogen peroxide for pets? If you want to get your pet to throw up at home, having hydrogen peroxide on hand does come in handy. However, ensure that you stick to 3% hydrogen peroxide. Please be careful with inducing vomiting and don't make the decision on your own. In some cases, it might be more dangerous for your pet to vomit the poison than for him not to. So, to be absolutely sure, you can call the pet poison helpline or the local animal herb before trying to induce vomiting. If they give you the go-ahead, then you can do just that with 3% hydrogen peroxide. The steps are quite easy to follow, and as long as you do them right, you can safely get your dog to throw up whatever he might have ingested that's poisonous to him with the help of hydrogen peroxide. Finally, hydrogen peroxide can also help in deskunking of dogs as well. That said, here are some rules of thumbs when it comes to dog wounds and injuries. 1. If it's a bite wound, it must be examined by a vet. Sometimes, dogs get into scuffles with a cat, another dog, or a wild animal, and sometimes, that could end in biting. If your dog comes back with a bite wound, then you must go and see your vet immediately. That's not something you should handle on your own. When animals bite, they also pass bacteria deep into the wounds even when the punctures are really tiny. So, in most cases, once there is a bite from another animal, antibiotics are always administered to get rid of infection. Secondly, it's possible that your dog might need a rabies shot, especially if the animal that did the biting was a cat, a stray dog, or a wild animal. Thirdly, bite wounds often aren't all that they seem. They might seem benign and look like there's nothing to worry about. Nevertheless, oftentimes, there's underlying trauma experienced by surrounding tissues and muscles. This is particularly common if the dog is a small breed and was probably grabbed or shaken. Sometimes, there might even be internal bleeding. 2. If it's a puncture from an unknown source, it must be treated by a vet. A puncture wound can range from bite wounds from other animals, to gunshot wounds, to the penetration of a foreign body. There are times when a sharp object penetrates a part of the body and gets lodged in the wound. In those cases, the wound might look small, but the entrapment of a foreign body in a wound can delay healing and even cause infection. 3. If a wound is more than an inch long, on the abdomen or the chest, is contaminated, or comes with jagged edges, it must be treated by a vet. Such wounds are practically impossible to treat at home yourself without putting yourself at the risk of getting injured or traumatizing the wound further. Also, wounds that occur on sensitive areas such as the abdomen or the chest are usually much more severe than they appear at first glance. These wounds are best examined and treated by a vet. If the injury, however, is a small, superficial one on the limbs or on the face, not close to the eyes, you can manage that yourself at home. 4. Be careful with the use of hydrogen peroxide in treating dog wounds. For many experts, you should not even use hydrogen peroxide at all to treat dog wounds. However, some say you can use it once to decontaminate the wound. They strongly advise, though, that you do not use it repeatedly. In fact, everyone agrees that there are better ways to clean dog wounds than to use hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide irritates tissues violently and can even impede healing if you use it repetitively. So, only use it once to decontaminate if you must. Generally, you want to avoid using alcohol on your dog's wounds. They sting like 1,000 burning needles and could provoke a normally well-behaved dog to either snap or even bite. 5. If the wound looks minor, is less than an inch in length, and comes with clean edges, you can treat it at home. Minor wounds that do not fall into any of the categories listed in this video can be treated at home by yourself. In our next video, we will show you natural topical remedies for dog wounds. We will also show you internal supplements to help accelerate the healing of wounds. Did you enjoy this video? Click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you'll know once we post a new video. Also drop a comment below so we can know your thoughts. Finally, don't forget to check the description below for more details and visit our site, www.dogproductsguide.com, for more awesome dog product content like this.